Hi, I'm Alison. Welcome to Dream Chasers Adventures in Happiness, where my band of superhero guests and I share with you tales of daring do, life-changing journeys towards living our best lives. If you're after an injection of inspiration and ideas to live the life that you want and deserve, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hi there, and welcome to the show where we serve up conversation, concepts, and belief that it really is entirely possible to create what you crave. If there's something stopping you from pursuing happiness, whatever that looks like to you from a career or lifestyle point of view, the stories and insights covered here are designed to help. Now today, do I have a guest for you? I'm joined by Susan Hyatt, who is a Master Certified Life Coach, a best-selling author, and a TEDx speaker. Now, Susan is someone that I have personally followed and been in awe of for years, both from a professional and a personal point of view. Not only has she built a multi-million-dollar coaching business after changing career, but she's done it off the back of helping women supercharge their confidence, boost their bank accounts, and probably most pertinent to this podcast, amplify their joy. She's all about playing big, inspiring women to live their best and fullest lives, and, well, she really walks the talk. Now, female or not, I think Susan's lessons apply to anyone looking to get the most out of their career and life, and ultimately prioritize and elevate their happiness. So without further ado, let's learn more about Susan's ethos and approaches and programs. So welcome to the show, Susan.
Thank you for having me, Allison. This is such a delight. And what an intro. I'm just going to take you on the road with me.
What the personal old PR person. So, can we start by kind of with your own personal story? Because everything I've just described in terms of the way that you live your life and, you know, what you coach people on, I know was not always the case for you.
Correct.
There was a time when you were a pretty miserable real estate agent, not living your ultimate life. Can you talk a little bit about where you came from and kind of how it felt and how it shaped who you are now and what you do for a living?
Absolutely. So I think my days as a miserable, burnt out real estate agent really absolutely informed and helped me create this company. But the reason that I got into residential real estate in the first place was that I honestly felt that I was someone that passion had just passed by. I would watch the Oprah Winfrey Show and I would marvel at women who had found their thing. You know, people would go on the show and talk about, you know, Oprah was my first life coach and would talk about living their best lives. And I distinctly remember an episode of a woman, and it might have been two women together, who had made a fortune creating pocketbooks, purses out of recycled asphalt. You know, do you remember on when we grew up, we're both Gen X.
Yeah.
Do you remember playgrounds that had those strips of asphalt as like padding?
Yeah.
They found a way to recycle those and make these amazing purses out of them. And I remember thinking, well, see, I just don't have what it takes to invent something or create something like that. And I just decided that maybe I was someone who just wasn't destined to ever find my thing. And so it led me down a path of trying to figure out what to do. So you and I have in common, you know, being PR people in our past lives, right? So I graduated from college. I went into public relations and marketing, and then was a stay-at-home mom for a few years. I tried that. I tried real hard. And it wasn't quite the life for me. And I decided to re-enter the workforce as a residential real estate agent because I thought, well, here's a career where I could set my own schedule, which anyone who's ever been in residential real estate knows that is absolutely a lie if they tell you that's the case. And it was through all of this seeking that I really just said, I'm just going to do something where I can make a lot of money, because obviously I don't know what my thing is. And I did that, and found myself very burnt out, and just sort of looking around and saying, okay, I did everything they told me to do.
Yeah.
I went to college, I got good grades, I married a nice man, I had these 2 beautiful children, I have this beautiful home, I have a beautiful car, a very American, right? The quote unquote American dream. I did all that. And on the outside, it looks really fantastic.
Yeah.
And on the inside, I felt exhausted, dissatisfied, and very guilty that I wasn't more grateful for what I had.
It's so common. It's so common, isn't it? I think so many people don't find their thing, go into whatever it is, tick all the boxes. I was the same. And it looks great. And it looks like it's all tied up in a nice pink bow, and it's a lovely life. And inside you're kind of going, what is wrong with me? What? I'm all grateful.
What did I do wrong? Like, why am I not more fulfilled by this? Because we're taught from birth that, like, this is the pinnacle, right? This is what you should strive for. And while I loved my husband and I loved my children and I did love my customers, I did really enjoy helping people get what they wanted, I knew that there had to be something else, because I was crying uncle. I was like, okay, I can't continue to do this. And so I started trying to figure out what really makes me happy. What really brings me joy. And at the time, my mother was visiting, and there was this moment in the kitchen where she looked at me and she said, she was visiting and all I was doing was working and crying. And she said, this just isn't my daughter. Why don't I just keep the kids and you go somewhere and do something fun for just you? And my meltdown was that I had no idea what I would go do.
Wow.
I had no hobbies. Everything was about work or family. And I sunk to the kitchen floor, like in a little hovel of tears. The only thing I can think of to do is go grocery shopping all by myself and get caught up on the laundry. These were the things that immediately entered my mind that might be satisfying. And she was like, you have got to figure this out. Like, this isn't you. And so I did. And so I went back to therapy. I started just devouring every bit of self-help, all the books. I went to the library and I went to Barnes and Noble in my town and was looking for a book about career, like how to pick a better career kind of book. And Dr. Martha Beck's book, Finding Your Own North Star, literally fell on my head in the store. And I took it as a sign, and it was. I think it's one of the best self-help books ever written. And that was 2006 when I purchased that book and started doing the exercises in that book. And my life started to change. I started to reconnect with what was important to me, what brought me joy, dreams that I had tucked away about becoming a writer. And the beauty in that book, I think, is it helps you remember, when you were a kid, what helped, what made you lose track of time. That one question changed the trajectory of my entire life. Wow. Because I was like, oh yeah, as a little kid, I used to line all my stuffed animals and my dolls and Barbies up and like preach at them. I would like tell them things, and I would write poetry for hours. And so writing and speaking were things that I didn't know what to do with or how I would make a living at that. And those are things that are a part of my everyday life now.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. I mean, that's an amazing story. And you know, for anybody who hasn't read Martha's that book, Finding Your Own North Star, it was pretty much the same for me. It didn't fall on my head, but
right.
I found her book, and yeah, the questions kind of opened up a whole world of things that I'd loved doing when I was a kid that I'd never touched before. And I like being creative. I used to love artwork. I used to love making things. I was always to be found in the garage nailing things together and kind of cutting and pasting stuff and making things up. You know, and all of that was completely missing from my life at the time, and I'd actually just forgotten about it. I'd forgotten that was an important part of who I was and what I enjoyed. And yeah. So fast forward to where you are now, just for context for listeners, can you talk a bit about the work you do now, the things that you cover, and particularly the concept of big yes energy, because it's a core principle that I know, you know, that runs throughout your own life, but also, you know, through all of your coaching programs. And I know this because I've done a number of your programs, and I was on your business mastermind last year, which was amazing.
Thank you.
But can you sort of chat a little bit about what big yes energy really means and what it entails and kind of what you get people doing?
Well, in short, big yes energy is tapping into what your mind and your body have a yes reaction to, and living a yes life, which is a life full of fun and passion, and also that includes boundaries and saying no to plenty of things that you don't want to do anymore. And so big yes energy is a way of life, really. It's about approaching the day with, I'm going to say yes to the things that fill me up, and I'm going to say no to the things that deplete and drain me. And so when I created the Yes community, it started with a program that's coming back up again called Summer of Yes. And it started because this will be like the 7th year of Summer of Yes. And 7 years ago, my kids were teenagers. They were still at home at the time. And I was sort of marveling at how myself and most of my clients would spend their summers making sure that everyone else had a marvelous time. You know, whether it's like soccer camp or band camp or like the family vacation, right? Like just knocking ourselves out. The invisible workload multiplies in summer because if you're a parent, those kids are not at school. So what are you going to do? And so I was like, you know what if we said yes to us? What if we said yes to what we wanted to do this summer, and we planned things around what was going to fill up and entertain us instead of just every single thing being about everyone else? And then that expanded. A couple of years ago, someone said, I wish Summer of Yes was all year long. And I was like, me too. And so Big Yes Energy was born, where having a year of yes, a life of yes, and expanding those concepts not just to the summer season, but all year round, and making sure that you're honoring yourself and not burning yourself out for your community, for your workplace, for your family, and that you're part of the equation. You're not an afterthought.
Yeah. What would you say to people who kind of on principle are like, yeah, I get the concept, but it's not realistic, it's not possible or practical, and I've got all of these obligations and commitments and things, so nice idea, but kind of impossible to achieve?
Well, the first thing I would say is you have an obligation and a responsibility to you first. And if you aren't honoring your own personal obligations and your own personal responsibilities to love and care for this person, how can you possibly be effective or loving to everyone else around you? Because if you haven't noticed, because I've lived it both ways, when you are sacrificing yourself for everyone else, what they get is a watered down, miserable version of you. So I get that you think you have an obligation to volunteer at the school or the church or your community center. And what I'm saying is, not if you haven't volunteered for your own soul first.
Mm-hmm.
So by all means, be a volunteer, but are you doing it at the expense of the person who's showing up to do the volunteer work? I don't think anybody needs that.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's really interesting, isn't it? Like you said, I think boundaries are a massive part of this, because
Right.
it's one thing to want to do it and to say it and to think it, and it's another to put boundaries up and push back and say no, and it creates a whole load of fear for people around those things. But yeah, I think like tackling boundaries and coming at it with a, do you know what? I'm going to turn up as my best self. If I honor myself first, then everything else is going to work in a much better way.
Right. And
prove to yourself it does work.
It does work. And I think the biggest argument, the biggest yeah, but argument is around time. And something that I teach is becoming a time creator. And if you're a time creator, that's going to involve letting other people do what they can do for themselves. I was that mom who was running up to the school multiple times a day because my kiddo forgot their lunch or there's some after school thing or whatever. What I'm saying is those kids can eat peanut butter and jelly, or they can make it themselves, or you can carpool, right? There's a million ways to find time so that you can honor yourself. And the bigger question is, why do you think you deserve so little? Why do you think you're the last on the list? Let's start there. And we could talk about how culture at large does not typically honor or value women and the work that women do.
Yeah.
So
really, really powerful, isn't it? It's powerful stuff when you start to dig into it. And quite frightening.
It is. Because it disrupts your belief system. It disrupts your identity. It disrupts what you believe about community. And listen, I mean, sometimes you got to get angry in order to get it right.
But yeah, I mean, I've got quite a few clients who are in that kind of boat, who've got kids and a house to run and really big full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And partners who have another big full-time job, but don't realize that a lot of the work is sitting with them. And then actually, I've challenged them on sharing the load, and just, you know, and it feels so uncomfortable at first because they've just assumed the responsibility and assumed that that's part of their role. And when they've done it, they've been so surprised. That typically, if they've got good partners, their partners get it and will take it on and won't think too much of it. And B, how much time is created and space to actually breathe and do some things that actually are just for them.
Exactly. It makes all the difference. And it's like really questioning, why am I the one doing this? Why do I believe that this is my responsibility? And who else put people to work? Who else can do this for me? Whether you're outsourcing it or, you know, putting the other people in that house to work, I guarantee you can find the time. And listen, if the statistics, now this is for hetero relationships, but if the statistic that on average, and I think this is low, in heterosexual relationships, the men have an extra 5 hours of leisure time a week than their female counterparts. If that stat alone, I know every woman listening to this is nodding her head because you've seen him laying on the couch while you've done XYZ, right? 5 hours a week more they have? You get your leisure time back. No, ma'am.
Amazing. So, nothing I wanted to talk about is that so last year you turned 50.
Yes,
And
I'm about to turn 51.
unbelievable already. And rather than adopting a kind of, oh God, I'm getting old, things are going south, it's all on a downward spiral from here on in, which I think a lot of us are prone to do. You did the total opposite, which at the time when I was watching it, I was just loving it and just thinking, wow. And you really embraced turning 50. And in fact, you actually built a program around it called Prime off the back of it.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the ethos of this whole, of aging and how you've switched it and what's involved?
Absolutely. Well, and again, this goes to the value of women culturally in our society. The idea that if you look at a woman's life and you say, okay, there's the maiden, there's the mother, and then it jumps right to crone. There's the crone. And there's this whole space in between that's the queendom. So culture wants to frame a woman's worth around her reproductive years. And then when menopause hit, perimenopause or menopause hits, it's like, okay, discarded, ignored, we're done. We're not valuing that anymore. When we are our most powerful, right? And so here's the thing. It's like, I'm 50. When you age, you start to realize I'm not beholden to this reproductive cycle anymore. I'm not beholden to the male gaze. I can flex my power, my experience, my wisdom. This is when we're real dangerous. And it's the most fun. And so I was like, the only reason we're scared of aging is because culture teaches us that it's like thinness and youth at all costs. And I'm here to say we can retrain ourselves to value and appreciate the beauty of an aging face and body. Like, who said that an aging face and body is less desirable? And we can redefine that. And so I'm just like, watch this. Okay. I am in my prime, as are you. And well, I'm probably going to live another 50 years because I've already planned my 100th birthday in my head. Right? And so, for the next 50 years, I'm going to sit around and cry that, my youth is gone. No, thank you. I don't want to. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a 20-something again.
No, absolutely not.
Are you kidding? And as obsessed as I am with Taylor Allison Swift, listen, her new double album, the Tortured Poets Department anthology, is on repeat. And also, I want to coach these 30-somethings. I want these tortured, I love you, it's ruining my life narratives. I'm like, let us talk about how you are the most powerful woman in the music industry. And we don't need all that. Yeah. And anyway, that's a side note. Y'all got to listen because the poetry is exceptional. And also, I am so happy to be in my prime. I am so happy to be 50 plus. And I want to age in a way that's full of vitality. So I'm lifting heavier weights. I'm running a marathon in November. I'm going on all the trips. I'm walking the Camino. I'm doing all the things to honor what it means to be a woman who's in her prime.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant example. When you took a whole bunch of women and did the walk to the Camino and did it in style too, not just a bit of a hike, but the
right.
Susan Hyatt experience. Really, from an outside point of view, it really shows it just like, yeah, why the hell not? We've got to this age, and like I said, I mean, I feel a lot more freedom than I did years ago. I've managed to get rid of the shackles of the things I was telling myself I had to be, and no more trying to sort of contort myself to fit any kind of mold. And it's freeing and it's liberating and it feels great. And so, yeah.
It feels amazing. And when I talk to my kids are 25 and 23. And when I talk to these 20 somethings, and listen, my daughter, for example, was talking about just a lot of dating drama. And I looked across the table at her and I said, I am exhausted just listening to this. And she said, try living it, Mom. And I was like, but you are the creator of the drama. And the look on her face, she was like, well, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, these 20 somethings out here, like, first of all, I love Gen Z. So if you have any Gen Z listeners, what I'm saying is I understand that you all are going to save society. And also, my God, I am just like, at 50 years old, turning 51, I am so happy to have done all the therapy and coaching over the years to be in a place where I'm just like, no drama, all yes energy.
Yeah.
In bed by 8:30 and up in the morning for the sunrise. That's what's living.
Brilliant. So you've obviously got a lot going on from a work point of view. You're running retreats, you're running online group programs, you do a lot of speaking engagements and kind of running events and things. How do you keep the balance without burning out and ensure that fun and joy really continue to sit at the very heart of what you do? Because this is one area where I personally, as you know, I get challenged because I get busy and then I keep running at it because I'm excited by it. But then I do too much and then I forget the joy piece. So I have to keep coming back.
Yeah. Well, as a former workaholic, it has been, I have created structure and boundaries for myself so that I stay true to it, because my first year, so in 2007, when I started this company, I realized that while I enjoyed my work so much more, I was bringing a lot of the workaholic tendencies from real estate into this business. And I had to start to look at, how am I going to manage my time differently? How am I going to take care of my physical body differently so that I have the big yes energy to do all the things that I want to do? So I will say, number one for me is self-care in the sense of sleep. I am very consistent with going to bed early and getting up early. I don't care where I am or what I'm doing. You'll notice that some of my smaller events, like brunches, they used to be dinners. Now they're brunches, okay? Because I like to go to bed. So that's one tiny example that instead of doing my meetup dinner parties, now in 2024, they are brunches, right? And so consistent sleep, consistent working out. So I move my body for mental health reasons. And so I'm consistent with running and lifting weights, which help me feel great. And then I also have very consistent business hours. So I am of the opinion that if by the end of my day, which is typically 4 p.m. Central Time, I do what's called a desk blessing, where I put my hands on my desk, I close out all my tabs, I close up my planner, I put my hands on my desk and say, like, you have done enough. This has been enough. And if it's not enough, you know what? It'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I was someone who would just work, and try to get everything on my to-do list done. I had to check all the boxes. Yeah. And guess what? It's never all done. Ever. So
no, I love that. It's a great little, I am done. That is enough.
That's enough. And I close the door. This is a home office, as you know, but I'll go close that door. And I do not come back into this room until the next morning.
I'm going to steal that. I am done. This is enough.
I have an audio I can send you. I recorded like a couple minute meditation that's like, you basically like, you're done, boo. You did it. Good job. Let yourself have your evening.
Brilliant. Well, can we finish off just by talking about what you call vitamin P, which I love. Like, what's that all about?
Listen, first of all, I love your accent. They used to call it vitamin P. And I'm from the South in the United States, so I'm like, vitamin P. But vitamin P is basically pleasure. So get your minds out of the gutter. Vitamin P stands for pleasure. And in my research, what I discovered is that we come into this world with our bodies wired from head to toe for pleasure. And there's all different kinds of pleasure that our bodies are expecting to experience. But when we're so busy being productive and so busy and work, and we deny ourselves pleasure, then what happens is we start to suffer from illness, we start to suffer from stress, high cortisol, all those things. Pleasure, vitamin P, when we experience pleasure, whether it's intellectual pleasure or intimate touch or the spiritual pleasure or creative pleasure, what happens is that it floods the body with good feeling hormones like dopamine. And when I say vitamin P, I mean, did you take your vitamins today? Did you spend time moving your body, sitting in silence with yourself, if spiritual pleasure for you is meditation, and building into your day all the different kinds of pleasure, because there's 7-8 different types, so that you feel satisfied cellularly. Often we're trying to get that pleasure from food, which food should be pleasurable, but we're trying to get it in really misguided coping mechanism ways, because we're not just making sure that, like, oh, right, I deserve to take a hot shower or bath. Oh, right, like I can make sure that even the mug I drink my coffee out of brings me pleasure. I can be intentional about it throughout my day so that I'm not constantly chasing some dopamine high from clicks, follows, shopping online, fill in the blank.
Yeah. It's a brilliant concept, and it's so true. And it's I think it's something that it's easy to put on the back burner and not think about as you're busy with your day, whatever you're doing. And when you do make time, and it can be the smallest things, like you said.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, it's burning a candle that smells really nice in my office space, or putting on a piece of music that just lifts me up and makes me ready for my day, or playing with my tarot cards, which is I love to do first thing in the morning, kind of get guidance on the day. Like, whatever it is, tiny little things that are littered that just fill you up and make you feel good physically, mentally, and emotionally. As well as peppering in some of the bigger things.
Right. And when you start to approach your day that way, then it becomes a way of life where it's easier to say no to things that are just in direct contrast with that. Like, oh, right. Like, no, I'm not going to ride 8 hours in the car to do this thing I don't even want to do. I'm going to say no.
Yeah. Love it. Oh, listen, Susan, it's just been absolutely amazing having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom and insights and some of these approaches. I think there's an awful lot to chew on here for anyone who wants to imbue more joy and fun and pleasure into their work and lives. If anyone is interested in learning more about you and your freaking awesome programs, how can they find you?
Well, my website is susanhyatt.co. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Susan Hyatt. And I also have a podcast called You've Got Nerve, which is all about women getting up the nerve to do amazing things.
Fabulous. I'm going to include all of the links to everything in the show notes so that people can come find you. So honestly, thanks so much.
Thank you. This was such a delight.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope it's provided some real inspiration, on not just settling for okay or mediocre, but really going after your own big yes energy and vitamin P, whatever that looks like to you, to live the life you want and deserve. If you know anyone that would benefit from listening to this conversation and Susan's thought-provoking approaches and perspectives, please do share this episode. So until next time, just know that I believe in you and your ability to create the life and career you really want. So go do your thing. Thank you for listening today. I hope our time together has got you thinking about your own adventure in happiness. So please do get in touch. I'd love to hear more about your story. And why not join our Dream Chasers Unite community? There is nothing better than an adventure shared. Until next time, be brave and go create what you crave.